the human left for dead. The war was over. Not won, not lost, just over. Smoke rose from the crater-filled field. Bodies lay twisted, some human, some alien. Blasters no longer fired, engines no longer screamed. Everything was still, except for one breath. Beneath a shattered drone wing, Private Ethan Rell groaned. His leg was torn open. His chest armor cracked. Blood ran down his temple. He blinked slowly, trying to remember where he was. "Command?" he whispered into his broken earpiece. "Anyone?" Silence. The evacuation ship had left hours ago. His name hadn't been called. No one had checked the wounded. He had been forgotten, left behind like junk. The sky above him was turning dark violet as the twin suns of Gorvith 6 dipped below the horizon. Cold wind brushed over the battlefield. He coughed, once, twice, and tasted iron. And then, a shadow. Not human, not a drone. It was tall, massive. He heard slow, deliberate footsteps, heavy, but calm. Something was approaching. He reached for his sidearm, but his hand was too weak. His fingers barely twitched. Then it appeared. A towering 9-foot figure stepped into the twilight. Her skin glowed faint lavender under the setting sun. Her white hair shimmered like liquid metal. Her eyes, bright blue and glowing, stared directly into his, a virulent matriarch, a warrior, a killer. Ethan froze, heart pounding. So this was it. His last moment. But instead of raising a weapon, the alien woman dropped to one knee. She didn't speak. She reached out slowly. He winced, but her hand landed gently on his cheek. Warm, careful, motherly. "Why?" he choked. "Out." She only watched him. Her other hand opened a pouch and pulled out a pulse-vine leaf, soaked in golden liquid. She pressed it to his wound. A soft hum followed. The pain eased. She leaned down and whispered something in her own tongue. Soft, deep, protective. He couldn't understand the words, but the tone. It wasn't hate, it was something else. Like a lullaby. She lifted him in her arms. To her, he was light, small, fragile. She cradled him as if she had done this before, not in war, but in life. Like she had once held a child. Her child. Ethan's vision blurred. He didn't know where she was taking him. He didn't even know if he was safe. But for the first time since the war started, he felt safe. Hours passed. The battlefield faded behind them. Cheryl, the alien matriarch, carried the human boy through thick jungle vines. Her armor cracked and dusted, but her grip on him never loosened. At last, she arrived at a hidden, stone temple, half-buried, overgrown, sacred. She laid him gently on a bed of woven moss. A glowing orb above his chest began healing slowly. She sat nearby, watching. She didn't sleep. She just watched, not like a soldier, but like a mother who'd been given another chance. Inside her armor, she touched a crystal, a necklace she hadn't removed in years. It held an image of her lost son. He had been human-sized, small, soft, curious, just like this boy. She looked back at Ethan, and for the first time in decades, her heart beat with something other than anger, something that sounded like love. Her touch wasn't what he expected. Ethan expected pain. He expected darkness, coldness, chains. He expected the stories he had heard during military training about what the Virulans did to prisoners. But when he woke, it was none of those things. He was lying on a soft surface made of thick moss and flower-like fibers that gave off a gentle warmth. A golden light floated above him, turning slowly, casting soft beams across the ceiling of a strange alien room. His leg, which had been bleeding badly, was wrapped in something like crystal bandages. They glowed faintly and pulsed with each beat of his heart. His armor was gone, but he wasn't bound. And then he saw her again, the giant, Cheryl. She sat nearby, legs crossed, eyes closed. Her long silver-white hair moved slightly in the wind, blowing through the open stone wall. When she noticed him awake, she opened her glowing eyes and stood. Her steps were slow, deliberate, careful. Ethan tensed up. Was this the moment she'd demand something? Interrogate him? Hurt him? Instead, she kneeled beside him and reached out. Ethan flinched, but she didn't hit him. She placed her warm palm, almost twice the size of his head, on his forehead, checking his temperature. Her hand was gentle, not a warrior's touch, a caretaker's. "What are you doing?" Ethan asked, voice hoarse. She didn't answer in English, but she hummed something deep in her throat. A slow, soft sound that vibrated in his chest. It wasn't a war cry. It was a melody, soothing, old, motherly. He stared, confused. She reached into a pouch and pulled out something like a small fruit. Its skin shimmered green-blue. She peeled it with her clawed fingers, then held it out for him. "You want me to eat that?" he asked. She nodded once. Ethan hesitated, but his stomach answered for him. He took a bite. It tasted like sweet honey and citrus. His body relaxed. She gave a slow nod, pleased. And then she did something strange. She took a soft cloth from her armor, dipped it in a glowing liquid from a carved bowl beside her, and began to wipe the blood from his face, carefully, lovingly, like a mother cleaning her wounded child. Ethan didn't know what to say. He wasn't used to anyone treating him like this. Not since he was 10. Not since his own mother died. He closed his eyes and let her continue. For a moment there was no war, just warmth, safety, and a strange bond he couldn't explain. Later that night, rain fell gently outside the temple. Ethan couldn't sleep. Pain still lingered in his body, but it wasn't what kept him awake. It was her. She sat by the wall, staring at a strange necklace in her hands. It held two tiny crystal figures, one large, one small. A memory, maybe. A loss. She hummed again. That same song. It echoed through the stone walls. Ethan listened, and for the first time since boot camp, he cried, quietly. Tears fell from his eyes before he could stop them. He turned away, embarrassed. But she heard and came to him. She didn't ask questions. She simply sat down beside him, her size making her feel like a mountain, and wrapped her arm around him slowly like a massive blanket. Ethan stiffened, then relaxed, and cried harder. And through it all, she held him, not like a soldier, not like an alien, but like someone who had lost and found something again. He fell asleep in her arms, and somewhere in her giant war-hardened heart, a memory of her lost son smiled, and the silent beginning of a new bond began to grow. Why would an alien care? Ethan awoke to the smell of something cooking. It wasn't anything familiar, not bacon or coffee, but something earthy, warm, and rich. It smelled like roasted roots and sweet spice. His stomach growled before his eyes even opened. The moss beneath him was soft. His leg no longer throbbed. The healing bandage glowed faintly, still doing its work. He sat up, slowly, and there she was, Cheryl, kneeling near a stone fire pit. A pot sat over the flame, steam rising. She stirred it with a wooden tool, humming quietly. That same song again. Deep and sad. She noticed him and turned her head, giving a soft nod. Ethan leaned against the wall. "Why?" he asked softly. She tilted her head. "Why are you doing this?" he said louder. "You're a Viralan. I'm human. We're enemies. You could have left me to die." She was quiet. Then she stood, walked over, and handed him a carved wooden bowl. Inside was a warm, thick soup. It smelled amazing. She didn't speak, but her eyes said something deep. Ethan took the bowl and ate. He was still staring at her. "You're not just helping me. You're protecting me." He swallowed. Why would an alien care? Cheryl sat down beside him, slowly, carefully, her giant figure casting a long shadow over the moss floor. Then she reached for something around her neck. A necklace. It had a locket-like crystal. She tapped it gently, and it projected a faint blue image into the air. Ethan's eyes widened. It was a young child. Not Varellin. Human. A little human boy with messy dark hair and bright eyes. The image spun slowly. Cheryl reached out and touched the image as if touching something sacred. Ethan couldn't believe what he was seeing. You had a human child? She nodded slowly. He whispered. How? She placed her hand on her chest, then on the locket, then on his heart. Her meaning was clear. Love. That child had meant everything to her. Ethan's voice shook. Where is he? Now? Cheryl looked down, then turned the image off. Silence. Ethan didn't ask again. He didn't need to. He understood the look in her eyes, the same look his father wore at his mother's funeral. Loss, pain, and something deeper. The pain of not being able to protect. They sat in silence. Not awkward silence, a shared silence, like the space between two souls beginning to understand each other. Finally, Ethan spoke again. I was 7 when I lost my mom. Cheryl looked at him. I remember her voice, but I forgot her laugh, he said, staring at the fire. I thought I forgot what it felt like, to be held, to be cared for. He looked up. But somehow, being around you, it feels like she's not so far. Cheryl blinked slowly, then reached out her hand, not to heal, not to fight, just to hold his. Ethan hesitated, then placed his smaller hand in hers. Her skin was warm, her grip gentle, and in that moment, a connection formed, stronger than any alliance, any treaty, any command, 2 hearts, 2 wounds, 2 lonely souls. Finally, not alone. That night, as stars lit the jungle sky, Cheryl sat beside the sleeping human, humming her lullaby once more. But this time there was something different in her song. A faint hope, and deep within her chest, something stirred. Something ancient. Something powerful. The Varellin mother bond, once sealed by grief, had begun to awaken again, because sometimes, even in war, love returns where you least expect it. The jungle test. The jungle had been quiet for days. Peaceful. Warm breezes whispered through glowing leaves. Strange birds sang songs in 3 tones. Soft blue butterflies danced above the healing moss where Ethan rested. Cheryl had begun showing him how to stand again. His leg, still healing, was stiff but stronger. She supported him, one large hand always ready to catch him if he stumbled. Ethan didn't talk much, but neither did she. Their silence wasn't awkward anymore. It was safe, comforting. But peace on Gorveth 6 never lasted long. Not in the wild jungles. Not in war zones. That morning, as Ethan tried to walk on his own between 2 vines, something changed. The birds stopped singing, the wind stopped blowing, and then the leaves moved, not from wind, but from something else, something big. Cheryl turned her head sharply, nostrils flaring. Ethan froze. She reached for her staff, an alien weapon taller than he was. It buzzed with quiet power. Get behind me, she said suddenly in perfect English. Ethan blinked. Wait, you can speak English? She didn't answer. Her eyes were locked on the trees. Then they appeared, stalk beasts, tall, 6-legged hunters with skin like rusted iron and red eyes that saw heat and blood. There were 3 of them, and they were fast. One leaped forward, claws, aimed straight at Ethan. Cheryl moved like lightning. Her massive arm swung her weapon in an arc, and it cracked like thunder against the beast's side. It flew into a tree, yelping. Another beast circled behind. Ethan turned and tried to limp away, but the pain flared again. He fell. The third beast lunged, sharp teeth bared. It was just a second too close. Then, Cheryl roared. A roar that shook the leaves from the trees. She jumped between Ethan and the beast, catching it mid-air. Her claws dug into its chest, and with a mighty slam she pinned it to the ground. It screeched, but her eyes burned with fire. "No one touches him," she growled. With one final strike she ended it. Blood hissed against the moss. Silence returned. The jungle watched. Ethan lay on the ground, chest heaving. He looked up at her, tall, powerful, and covered in scratches. Her chest rose and fell with heavy breaths, but her eyes were on him. She bent down and scooped him up again like a child. "Are you hurt?" she asked, her voice low, steady. He shook his head. "Just scared." She sat him down near the healing fire and checked his leg again. "Why did you speak English just now?" he asked. Cheryl paused, then said softly, "Because I needed you to understand. You're mine to protect." Ethan's heart skipped. "Not as property," she added, "as someone I choose." He stared, and for the first time since they met, he smiled. A real smile. "You saved my life. You remind me why life is worth saving," she said. Later, as the sun fell behind the trees, they sat near the fire again. The beasts were gone. The danger had passed, but something had changed. The jungle had tested them, and they had passed. Together. Not as alien and human, but as something more. A bond, unexpected and powerful, had been forged not through talk, but through trust, danger, and sacrifice. Ethan looked at her under the starlight and whispered, "I don't think I ever thanked you properly." Cheryl turned. "You don't have to," she said. But Ethan shook his head. "No, I do." He stood up, still weak, and gently pressed his forehead against hers, just like she had done when she first found him. A gesture of peace, of trust, of family. Cheryl froze, then closed her eyes, and accepted it. The boy she had rescued on the battlefield was no longer just a human. He was hers now. Her kind isn't supposed to love humans. The stars above Gorveth 6 burned quietly that night, but Cheryl couldn't sleep. She stood at the edge of the mossy stone temple, her eyes locked on the horizon. She had felt something, a ripple in the air, a presence. They were coming, not predators, not beasts, her own kind, the Virellan matriarchs. Ethan sat nearby, watching her. He'd never seen her so still, so tense, like a statue carved by time. "Something's wrong," he said. Cheryl didn't look at him. "They found us," she whispered. "Who?" "My sisters." Ethan's heart tightened. "That's bad, isn't it?" Cheryl finally turned. "The Virellan matriarchs do not accept weakness. They do not forgive treason. And above all, they do not love humans." The next morning the sky thundered, not with lightning but with ships. Massive Virellan drop crafts sliced through the air, descending through the jungle canopy like dark gods returning to their throne. Ethan stood beside Cheryl, who now wore her full armor again. She didn't speak, didn't blink, just waited. Then they came. 4 Virellan warriors, armored in shimmering obsidian and silver, surrounded a 5th, a towering, elegant woman with markings carved into her pale skin. Her name was Esmira, Cheryl's older sister. "Cheryl," she said with calm venom, "we thought you were dead." "I survived," Cheryl replied coldly. "And you did so. With this?" Esmira's glowing eyes shifted to Ethan. "A human child?" Ethan tensed. Cheryl stepped forward, towering above even Esmira. "He is mine now," gasps rippled through the guards. "You dare speak the bond claim?" Esmira growled. "You would use the sacred right for that species?" Cheryl didn't flinch. "He was left to die. I chose to save him." Esmira narrowed her eyes. "You know the law." A matriarch may bond only with a mate of Varellan blood, or of status, not with a soldier from a species we were at war with. Ethan felt like the jungle floor was falling out beneath him. Cheryl stepped between him and her. People, I don't care about their laws anymore. Then you are no longer one of us, Ismira spat. You have 3 choices, another warrior said. Kill the human, return home in shame, or stay here, exiled forever. Ethan's eyes widened. Cheryl, don't throw away your life for me. She turned, and for the first time her voice broke. I already did, Ethan. The moment I chose to carry you from that battlefield, I knew there was no going back. Ethan wanted to argue, wanted to say she didn't have to do this. But he didn't. Because deep in her eyes he saw it. Not just defiance, not just protection. Love. Not romantic. Not ownership. But something stronger. Something sacred. She had lost her own child, and the galaxy had given her another soul to protect. And now, she was willing to lose everything for that second chance. Ismira raised her hand. Very well, she said, and with a flash of light her ship rose, leaving dust and silence behind. Cheryl fell to her knees, not from weakness, but from pain, from knowing she could never go home again. Ethan stepped forward, and, without a word, hugged her. His arms barely reached her sides, but she sobbed in his shoulder, and he held her, because now, he was her home. Later that night, Ethan spoke softly as they sat under the stars. I'm just a soldier. I have nothing. You have everything I've lost, she said. You're not supposed to love humans. Cheryl smiled through her tears. Then maybe I was never supposed to follow rules. A new kind of family. Weeks passed. No more Varellan patrols came, no more warships, no more beasts, just peace, just them. Cheryl and Ethan, 2 exiles, 2 souls who had no one else, until they found each other. The old stone temple in the jungle had become their home. Cheryl rebuilt it with strong vines, carved beams, and hardened stones. She shaped it with her bare hands, tall enough for her, warm enough for him. Ethan planted food outside, root vegetables, fruits from the forest, learned what was safe to eat, learned what made her laugh. They didn't speak about the past anymore. Not often, but sometimes in quiet moments the truth came back. Ethan once asked her what was his name. Cheryl didn't answer right away. She stared into the fire, then whispered, Talon. She pulled out the small crystal locket again, showed Ethan the boy's face one more time. He would have been your age by now, she said softly. He had your eyes, but a braver heart. Ethan shook his head. That's not true. I carried him for 7 cycles, she continued. Lost him in an attack. They told me I wasn't strong enough to protect him. That's why I never got another chance. Why they said I didn't deserve one. Ethan stood, walked over, and gently placed his hand on hers. You do now. She looked at him, and for the first time in years, she believed it. They started building. More than a shelter. They built a life. Cheryl taught Ethan her people's songs. Songs of courage, of protection. Ethan taught her to cook simple human meals. Spicy beans, toasted root cakes, and a soup she once said smelled like thunder. They laughed together. Not often, but enough. And one day, while they sat by the river, Ethan asked her, What are we really? She blinked. He clarified, You know. What is this? You're not my mother, and I'm not your soldier. Cheryl thought for a long moment, then finally said, You are my child by choice, not by birth, not by law, but by bond. Ethan was quiet. Then he smiled. I like that. A child by choice, he repeated. Sounds stronger than blood. Cheryl smiled too, because it was. One day while clearing the garden, Ethan found something in the dirt, a metal shard, old, rusted, from a human ship. He held it up. What is this doing here? Sharel came over, looked at the symbol. Her expression changed. It wasn't just any ship, it was his ship, the one Ethan had crash-landed in. Cheryl realized something. The jungle is changing, she whispered. What do you mean? Your crash site, it used to be far, now it's near. Ethan looked around. Trees had shifted. The land was moving, not physically, energetically. The planet was reacting to them, the bond, their presence, their healing. Then, that night, as Ethan slept, Cheryl walked to the edge of the forest again, looked up at the stars. She heard something, not a roar, not a scream, but a pulse, a signal. The planet was alive, and it had accepted them, not as fugitives, but as family. Cheryl went back, inside. She sat beside Ethan and watched him sleep. A human boy, alone in the galaxy. And yet, not alone. She placed a blanket over him and whispered the old lullaby of her people. A song once meant for Talon, now sung for someone new, because blood did not make family. Love did. And through it, they had created something neither war nor exile could take away. A new kind of family. She called him son, and the galaxy heard her cry. The stars burned brighter that week. Too bright. Cheryl knew something was coming. She had lived too long in war, too many years as a soldier. She could feel danger before it arrived, and now, the sky whispered it again. Something was coming for Ethan, for them. They were in the garden when it began. A sound like thunder. But it wasn't a storm. It was ships, big ones, human ones, military. Ethan ran out into the clearing and saw them descending. Sleek Earth Federation carriers, polished silver with blue flags. Cheryl's heart dropped. Your people, she whispered. Ethan nodded, confused. But how did they find us? Then he remembered. The metal shard. It had sent a signal. They must have tracked it. The humans landed and spread out with weapons ready. At their lead, Commander Redden, a stern man in black armor. Identify yourselves, he barked. Ethan stepped forward, hands raised. I'm Private Ethan Voss. I survived the Battle of Juno Delta. This woman, Cheryl, saved my life. Redden's eyes narrowed. We know who you are, he said coldly. You're listed as KIA. We came because of her. Cheryl stepped forward now, towering over the soldiers. I mean no harm, she said calmly. But the weapons didn't lower. She's one of them, Redden snapped. A Varellan matriarch, an enemy. She abducted a human soldier. That's a war crime. She didn't abduct me, Ethan shouted. She saved me. She raised me. She fed me, healed me, protected me when everyone else left me for dead. Redden's jaw tightened. She's still the enemy. Protocol is clear. She comes with us or we take her by force. Cheryl turned to Ethan. Softly said, I'll go. No, he shouted. It's the only way to stop this. She said. I can't let them hurt you. I don't care what they do to me. I'm not letting them take you. He stood in front of her now, arms wide, facing the guns. She's my family, he yelled, and if you take her, you'll have to go through me. The soldiers hesitated, confused, moved. Then Cheryl stepped forward and did something she had never done before, something sacred. She dropped to one knee, placed her large hand gently over Ethan's head, and declared, loud and clear, This is my son, my child by bond, and I will not let you take him from me. The jungle trembled. The sky went quiet. Even the Federation soldiers froze, because her voice was not just loud, it was felt, in the trees, in the air, in their bones. The commander's communicator buzzed. A message from the Federation High Council. They had monitored the signal. They had watched the scene unfold live via surveillance drone. And then came the words, Stand down. The matriarch's claim has been accepted. She has demonstrated no aggression. Ethan Voss is officially listed as her bondson. Let them be. Redden looked stunned. You're free to go, he muttered. The soldiers backed off. One by one, they disappeared into the trees and onto their ships. The ships lifted off. Silence returned. Ethan collapsed to his knees. Cheryl knelt beside him. They held each other, tight, for the first time, not out of fear, but out of joy. They had won, not with weapons, but with truth, with love. Years later, on that same jungle planet, a new home stood, stronger, wider, with symbols of both Earth and Viralan carved into the stone. Visitors sometimes came, curious ones, scientists, diplomats, refugees. They came to see the human and the matriarch, the bonded family who defied war and showed the galaxy a new kind of peace. Ethan taught them, Cheryl protected them, and together they raised others, children lost to war, children broken by fear, children who needed someone to call mother or son. And every night beneath the glowing sky, Cheryl would sing her old lullaby, and Ethan would lie by the fire, smiling, safe. Because in the end, it wasn't DNA or history that made a family. It was the love that never asked for anything. Back, it was the cry of a mother that even the galaxy couldn't ignore.